Welcome to part 14 of the adventure game in multiple languages. This is the Lua version, and today we're adding the item class and to create some item objects. So I'll just show this what it looks like when it runs. I'm going to run it from not within the IDE here, but just directly from double clicking on here. So let's get that one going. So nothing new here. We did this last time, so I don't want to disable the debug mode. And you'll see that we first of all have a new thing coming up, which is saying that the dictionary shared items contains the following objects. And then we've got a key card which is of object type item, and then a description of, so we've got 4 different items: a key card, a key, a torch, and a book, and those are the descriptions. So that's giving us these new objects which we're creating today. If I just press enter to continue, this pretty much as it was before. I've just got to add my name, choose the option, let's go for 2. This was we did last time, which is the player properties. I think that's just about it. Yep, there we go. Thanks for playing enter to quit. So let's show you how this is all generated. So the first new thing that we've got here is the item class, which is this one here. Let me just increase the font. Now, Lua is not really an object-oriented programming language, but some very clever people have managed to make it behave just like a proper OOP language by doing some clever stuff with meta tables. I don't pretend to understand it, but if I just get this out the way, if you go to this one here, which is from Recursor, and I'll put the link in the description down there, from a playlist, an enormous playlist, which gives you a bunch of stuff about the Love2D gaming engine and Lua in general. And this particular video, which is called A Class Module to Rule Them All, shows you how to make your own Lua class, and that's what I'm using. So let me just go back to mine. So in the library here, we've got this class.lua, which was made following the tutorial I just showed you. I'll just increase the size a bit. So if you want to know how it all works, I would ask you to check that video out. But this is kind of a generic class construction thing, so that we can make whatever classes we want in Lua. So the way this works is this generic class is made in the library here, and then to make a new class, if we go back to item, we're going to require that class library up here, and then from there we're going to derive a new class called item. So that's how it works. So we've now got this new class which works on the duck principle. That is, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. So although this is not theoretically a proper class and object, it behaves exactly like that, including inheritance. We can inherit from the item to make a weapon or a potion or whatever you want. So it really does behave just like a proper object-oriented program such as C# or Python. So this is the way it works. This is the code that we'll use. You have to import the class, you derive your class from it, and then this from here onwards is now very similar to the Python version, where you have here a constructor, which is the item new, and then you can pass whatever you want. There is a self aspect to the class, as there is in Python, you have this self variable, which is used throughout the class here. So it does behave quite similarly. So what we've got here is a name, description, craft items, uses, and container, which are passed in, so that when we make our item, we can obviously give it a name, like torch, a description. And the idea of the craft items is that if we wanted to make this particular item from other items, then that allows us to put in what's required to make the item. Uses would be if we had only, say, one use and then it disappeared, like a key. You might want to use the key and then the key vanishes from the system. Container is something that you can make an item that will contain other items. We're not using any of those in this tutorial, but they're there for expansion purposes. Now, with Python, I showed you how you can use the getters and setters using a sort of a more modern approach. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist in Lua, so we have to use the more old-fashioned types, such as if we want to get the name, we have to use this function called itemGetName, and which will return self.name. Same with the description. And if we want to set the description, then self.description equals whatever value we pass it. So this is very similar to the Python version I showed you. I don't know if I can just get that up. Yeah, here we've got the Python equivalent. So I showed you this, that the kind of more modern, up-to-date way of using your getters and setters is to use these decorators. But we don't have the equivalent in Lua, so we have to use this kind of old-fashioned way. So this is the direct equivalent of the get and set description here. So we've got the get description and set description. So in Lua, when you're dealing with the classes, do remember this is a colon here, not a dot. So it's item colon get name. If you use a dot, you can do, but you have to put self in here. So that's the kind of more conventional way of doing it. So this is like what they call, I think, syntactic sugar. So you get rid of the dot, put the colon in, and then you don't have to bother with the self. So this is kind of the accepted way of doing it in Lua. So the class doesn't really do much at the moment. It just has these getters and setters, basically. And this is an example here of having craft items. If we had some pliers and a coat hanger, we could craft a key retriever or something like that. So I'll just give you an example. So let's see how this now is brought into to use. Just save that. So we'll go back to drop that one off. I'll just show you anything else that has changed. So in main, I don't think there's much. Just increase the font here. I don't think there's much that's been changed. No, we've got no changes in here. The main function runs as it did before, so no, I don't think there's any changes in main. The game library, let's just increase the yeah, we've got a couple of new things in here. First of all, we're now going to require the item class. That's up here on line 8. And then here we've got the add to items has now been filled out. So we've got this new function working now. So shared items key name, which we'll go through in a minute. And then we've got a create default items here, which has now been populated. So again, we'll go through that in a minute as we step through it. So in the game load game, as before, we've got the player characters. We've now got this new create default items, which will create the new items. So let's go step through this and see how it all works. So we'll go to main, and let me see, we're going to skip past that. We'll go straight to game load game. I think that would be the best place to stop. So let's stop at that point there. So let's wind this up a bit so that, because this obviously will output to the IDE here, not to the console. So we need to shrink that up a bit. So I'll press the single button. Okay, hopefully something will come up in a minute. Now it helps, of course, if you do it on the correct class, which is main. Try that again. That's better. I'll just increase the font down here. Wrong one. So I've increased the font, which has sent it off the page a little bit, but at least we can see it. So as before, debug is on. Do we want to enable it? Yes, that's fine. So we're now going up here to the create default items. Bizarrely, that has already come up with the description, as if it's run it through already. Maybe I accidentally hit the... Yeah, let's start again with that one. Let's press that to close. We'll clear this. And we'll start again on main. Press the single one. Do we want to disable? No. Press enter. Right, create default items. That's better. So now we can step into... It's come up again. Right, okay. Bizarre. Okay. One more try. Debugging in Lua is a complete pain. Right, so we'll make sure that's all stopped, clear the output window, and then what we'll do is to go up to create default items, which is up here, and put a stop sign there. Main, press the start button. Okay. I'm just waiting for this to pop up down here at the moment. So far so good. Right, let's press F10. Oh, finally, we got there. Right, so we're now calling the create default items function here. So this is in turn going to call add to items, which is up here, a key card, magnetic strip card, property of Premiere in. So that's its name and that's its description. So if we press F10, it's then going to call the add to items. So if I hover over the key name, we've got key card there. If I hover over the description, we've got a magnetic strip key card, property of Premiere ins. Craft items is nil, uses is nil, and container is nil because we didn't pass anything in. So we'll now going to run this line here, which is shared items key name equals a new item by calling this item here. So again, we'll just go into the class and put a stop there to make sure that it does what it's supposed to. Let's go to name and then we'll press F10. Now we've actually gone first of all into the class library, which is part of this. So I suppose it might be interesting to see what it's doing. So this is going through the kind of a base class that we was talking about earlier here. So it's going through this. So F10, and then it's going back to here. So we called something in the base class. Now we're going into our derived item class, and we're going to set a key card with a magnetic strip keycard as the description. So we press F10. So it's going to set self name and self description, craft items, uses, and container. So if I hover over each of those, we've got the name keycard, description, magnetic blah blah blah. Craft items is an empty table, uses is 0, and container empty string. So that constructor has done its job. It was sent 0, 0, 0 up here, and so it's given them the default values here. So the constructor has worked. We've now got a new item object. So if we press F10, that returns us back to here. So we're still within the class constructor here. F10 again, and we've done it. So we've added to our shared items a new object. So if I can hover over shared items, can it just sit there? Yeah, there we go. So we've got the description here of shared items has only got one object in it, and so you can see that by the curly brackets that start it off. The square brackets containing keycard is the key for that item, and then it's equal to, and then you've got container equals empty string, craft items, description, etc., etc. As you can see, it's in reverse. That's because it's a dictionary, and so it tends to mess up the order at which they're stored, but that's just how dictionaries work. So that is basically our first item is now appearing in there. So that's going to now repeat and add a second item. So we're going to go through the same process again. So what I'll do is I'll just click there and let it run through to that place. We can untick that now. Run. So we've now got shared items. Probably hasn't got enough space to show all of the items, so but it is just showing that, again, the same as we did before. So what we'll do is we'll let it construct all of those items and come down to here. So let's take that one off, and hit the play button. So we've now got all 4 of these new items have been constructed, and they're all sitting inside the shared items thing here. So as you can see, it's now got the shared items for the first one. There is a book, which was of course the last one that we created, or not the last but one. So again, it's all in slightly odd order. Now shared debug is true, so it's now going to print out the contents of the shared items dictionary. So if I press F10, so this will come out on the console, not the console, on this IDE version here. So we press F10, and you've got the dictionary shared items contains the following. And we press F10 again. Key name object description. It's now going to print a row of these UTF-8 characters. So press F10 again. That's our row of characters. And now we're going to use the pairs, not iPairs, because shared items is basically a dictionary. It uses a string index for each of the item objects in it. So we use the key value in the pairs of each of the items there. So if I press F10, that's now got the first key value. So if I hover over key, it says key card, and the value is of course our magnetic strip card, Premier Ins, uses 0, etc., etc. So we know that's the first item that we're going to show. Now this is going to write this to the output down here using padWrite is borrowed from C#. The equivalent in Python is ljust. In other words, justify from the left, which is basically pad on the right, which is the C# way of doing it. So this pad right had to be handwritten, as it were. There isn't a built-in function to do that. So as I call F10, it's either just going to ignore it and print out the results, or it might step into it. I'm not too sure. Let's press F10 and see what happens. Yeah, it looks like it's just stepped through it. So we've got the key card bit has now been written down here. Let's press F10 again. Then we've got the item. Now, the way it's got item is using this value type. So the value is the object that we created, and it gets type from, there you can see, from the basic class. So in here somewhere, there is, here we are. When we created our class, first of all, we set the type to the name that we passed it. Of course, we passed it the word item. So the type here is item. As I say, it's fairly complex, this. So do look at that tutorial video so you understand it. I think of it as magic. It just works. So that saves worrying about it. So we're now writing out. I'll see if I can step into... Oh no, I haven't done the pad right. No, that's okay. So we're just going to write the value get description, which is a function, of course, and then add a new line character to the end of it. So if I press F10, it's going to get the description and then print it out. So that's done. So we're now going to step through again for the next item. So we've now gone through, we're at line 53, so we've got a new key, which is key, and the value this time is name of key is a Yale front door key covered in rat vomit. Charming. Okay, so let's see if we can step through this pad right thing now. So if we go into the shared one and pad right, should be in here somewhere. There it is. So let's hit that. It helps if I increase the font. Right, so we're going to step into that one now. So we're in game Lua. We're about to pad right the key, which is of course the word key, by 10 spaces. So let's step into that. So here we are. We've stepped into shared pad right. So the text that we want to step is item. Oh, I missed the first one. No worries. So we're actually padding out the item. The length is 8. That's the one that we wanted to. Let me just go back to what called this. So we're actually doing this line here, line 54. So we're shared pad right the type, which is 8 characters. So let's go back to the shared class. And then the character that we're padding it out with is a space. So we're going to pad out our text, which is item, to a length of 8 using a space. So this is just to check if car hasn't been given, if it was nil, then it's being given a single space as the default. So we can press F10, and then the local padding is set to an empty string. So we press F10. So padding is now just an empty string. Now the text length, because we are using some UTF-8 characters, the way Lua works is that it uses, it assumes that each character is 1 byte in the ASCII character set for its normal length processing abilities. But of course, if you're using UTF-8 characters, the ones I'm using are currently 3 bytes long, so we kind of have to use this special one in here. So we'll now hopefully pass into that one. Let's see if we can press F10. Yep, here's the UTF-8 length thing, which is still part of the shared library. So this is going to ascertain how long the string is. So the string itself is item. Okay, so it's got no UTF-8 characters in it. It's just a simple string. So we press F10, and we've got these two local values set to 0. And then we're going to step through a simple for loop between 1 and the length of the string. So this is going to run 4 times because our string is the word item. And then if we press F10, it's going to check whether the substring, or 1 of length 1, the string byte character of that is less than 128. So if I press F10, okay, which it obviously is because our string is item, and all the characters here are less than the ASCII value of 128. So you'll need to look up ASCII tables to check that out. But from memory, I think uppercase A is 65, or is it lowercase? I can never remember. But 127 is the last ASCII character in the set. So if it's less than that, we know it's a genuine 1 byte character. So it's going to make the ASCII length increase by 1. So if we press F10 again, and it's going to repeat that. But of course, as we know, all these characters are within there. So we've now got the UTF-8 length is still 0 because we haven't got any UTF-8 characters. And the ASCII length is 4 because we had 4 ASCII characters. So then we F10 again. And then we're now going to return the pair added together. So the length of our ASCII characters and the length of our UTF-8 characters, which of course we didn't get any. So there we are there. Let's press F10 to return that. So we've now got the text length as 4, and then we're going to loop through that again for the length that we've asked it to be padded to, which was 8, minus the length of our text, which is 4. So we're going to run this loop between 1 and 4. So 4 times we're going to add the space character, which we chose here, empty space, using the concatenation double dots to our existing padding. So this will do that 4 times. In other words, it will add 4 spaces to make the padding 4 spaces, which we then add on. So if I step through that thing here, that's it. So the padding is now 4 spaces. If I just get the padding on its own there, yeah, 4 spaces, and the text is item, so the text plus padding is item and 4 spaces. So that's how shared pad write works. So we can now exit that, and we're going to do the same with the description. So that will print everything out for us. So what we'll do is I'll go to the end of there. I hope it will stop at that point. Let's hit the, it's back in there, isn't it? Right, there we go. So we've now got all 4 of our items showing the class that they belong to. So it's an item object, its key, and its description. So that's the 4 items. Now they're not being used at the moment. This is just showing you how we can create them. We'll be using them a little later on. So we need to obviously, in order to use these items, we need to have somewhere to use them in. So that's, I think, the next topic, which is how to create various locations that we can explore and pick up items from. So let me press enter to continue here, and then the game runs pretty much as it did before. So I won't bother to complete it there, but I hope that that's been useful, comparing how the difference between the Python way of doing classes, and the fact that we can do it in Lua, but with this sort of like tiers of importing a generic class first, then making an item class by using the base class. And then if we wanted to make a weapon, which we will do in about 2 or 3 videos time, we will then make a local weapon equals classed equals item derive weapon. So that's the kind of clever way of doing it. You can inherit from whatever class you've currently got. So we can inherit from item now, which will in turn inherit from class. So it all gets quite complex, but it all works quite nice.